didn't you? You're finished. You'll go hollow. Yes, you'll become one of them. Hollows prey upon men, feast upon their souls. This is the fate of the cursed. What is your name? At least you know your own name. Here's your reward for sharing. It's a human effigy. Take a closer look. Who do you think it's supposed to be? Think back, deep into your past. Yes, it's an effigy of you.
Weapons. Today we have Dark Souls 2, everybody's favorite game. But these lists are just getting harder and harder to make because Dark Souls 2 just has a lot of really good weapons, and trying to condense it to just 10 is kind of annoying. There's so many amazing weapons that are just not going to make it to the list, but for me, I just picked the 10 most useful ones, and I did try to cover a wide variety, but didn't want to have a bunch of the exact type of weapon, but let's just get into it. Number 10, we have the Mastodon Helmet. Now, helmets in this game are just an amazing weapon class. They get really good range, they're relatively quick, and they get amazing movesets. The Blind Attack combo has very good variety, got nice horizontal, vertical swipes, and you do get poking attacks too. The heavy attack is a very solid spin to win, and even that running attack is like a better version of that spin to win because it can hit like up to 3 times. And combined with the range that it actually does get, means that it's really good at crowd control and hitting multiple enemies, and it's also just really good at boss DPS. Now for me, the downsides of halberds is that they can be on the heavier side, and their stamina costs can be pretty high, sometimes on par with like great swords, even ultra great swords, and they typically don't get as much poise damage or as much counter damage as those weapon classes, but the range and the movesets is more than enough to carry them. But as for the Mastodon Halberd in particular, doesn't get any unique types of movesets, but it does just get amazing damage, gets some of the highest base damage in the entire weapon class, and it probably just gets the best scalings too. You get an A scaling in strength, and even with like all the elemental infusions, you get like B scalings all across the board. It just performs really well. So if you actually want just the regular halberd experience, the Mastodon Halberd is probably going to be the best one. Number 9, we have the King's Ultra Greatsword. Now, this bad boy is an Ultra Greatsword that gets the exact same moveset as a Great Axe, which typically I don't really like the Great Axe moveset because it kind of lacks the variety and compensate for its different movesets. In fact, this thing can actually get the highest AR in the entire game, even more so than the Smelter Hammer. If you put like a lot of points to strength, it can actually outperform it because this bad boy gets an S scaling in strength, and even when you have an Elemental infused, it still retains an A scaling. And unlike most of the other Ultra Greatswords, it gets striking damage, which is just much better than slashing damage. Strike damage is like the best damage type in the entire game. Almost everything is just weaker to it. Now, the only downsides that I really can say about this is that it's still going to be on the heavier side, and it doesn't really get as much range as some of the Ultra Greatswords. But I guess like the biggest drawback is that it does actually get the lowest counter damage at 110 compared to all the other Ultra Greatswords. Most of them get 130 or 140, which I guess the fact that it does do strike damage kind of counteracts it anyway. And this ever get like the most amazing base damage, does get split magic damage. Its scalings aren't really too crazy either. It gets very average counter damage for an Ultra Greatsword, but there's just going to be a bunch of other things going for it. So that's one, is going to be its weight. It only weighs 14 units, which is very light for an Ultra Greatsword. It does also get an amazing moveset. Actually shares a very similar one to the Y-hander. It means you get the good sideward swipe to the light attack combo, a good horizontal swipe with the rolling attack, and you get those solid two-handed poking attacks with the heavy. But yes, the best thing about it is going to be its two-handed moveset, because every single swing will basically like turn it into a lightsaber. It does like extend the range by twice as much with that projectile part. Now that projectile part isn't going to be doing as much damage as the regular weapon itself, but the fact that you actually can just do nice damage at a longer distance that actually does stagger enemies, do some nice poise damage too, and it even actually does proc status effects as well, so you actually can just go into a poison infusion, or you can just double down to a bleed infusion, because this thing also does get passive bleed, and hitting with this weapon at point blank range is just going to do bonus damage because you're also hitting with that projectile part and the actual weapon itself. Next of durability, every knuckle ring to decrease the durability cost by half, so actually might be very annoying for some people, but if you can actually look past that or use ways to counteract it, it actually can definitely be one of the more powerful weapons in the game. Number 7, we have the Old Knight Hammer. Now, Great Hammers in general, I'm not really too big of a fan of. They don't really have as much poise damage in the entire. That's like your new game. This one repair power range don't actually weigh as much, and you get amazing counter damage. And with the Chaos Blade in particular, I'm gonna like this the most because it actually just gets insane damage. It's not gonna have like the highest base damage, but its scalings are just out of this world. Like it just gets an S scaling across heavy attacks. Two-handed are just really nice. You get good tracking. You do get a good follow-up as well. But the one-handed heavy attack take health every single time that you swing. 50 HP for every single time you hit with it, and then you can just go through speed. Now this is a halberd, which it just works like a regular halberd. You get the same movesets, you get average base, it's really good damage as the regular halberds get. Unfortunately, you still have it in the entire game. Number 4, we have the Red Iron Twin Blades. Now the Twin Blade category can be kind of... These things are just going to be really good because they all do striking damage and have... Like they're just really fast light attack combos, but the right top, they're so fucking fast and have so much counter damage, barely gives him any stamina. They all like weigh next to nothing. All are very low requirements, and paired alongside the correct rings, this thing early on, it can carry from start to finish. Amazing damage, amazing poise, you just can't go wrong. Number 1, we have the Ice Rapier, or honestly just like any rapier in general, because they're all just ridiculously broken. Now the reason as to why they're really good is because they're so fucking fast and have so much counter damage, barely gives him any stamina, they all like weigh next to nothing. All are very low requirements, and paired alongside the correct rings, this thing can just output the highest DPS in the entire game, with like next to no downsides outside of the fact that it does not do much poise damage, but with how fast that it does swing, it probably can stack up that poise damage nicely. And I guess it also doesn't get much variety with this moveset because you're just doing a bunch of pokes. So it's probably not going to be the best thing for crowd control, but if you're just killing enemies faster, then it's probably not going to be that big of a deal anyway. Now with the Ice Rapier in particular, this one is just going to be the best, because not only does it just output the most amount of damage with like different types of infusions, but it also does get a pretty cool heavy attack. It actually does so as a projectile, which is not going to get like the most amazing damage, but the fact that you can just pick enemies off at a distance or try and just kite enemies in one at a time, which kind of just does counteract the weakness of the rapier in just crowd control in general. So yeah, just going with any rapier is going to be perfectly fine. I recommend starting off with a regular rapier until you get access to the Ice Rapier. You don't have to farm it, which does kind of suck, but like once you do acquire the Ice Rapier, you have the best weapon in Dark Souls 2. Anyway, that is in fact the list. If you have your own opinions, just let me know down in the comments below. Yes, Dark Souls 3 will be the next one that we actually do end up covering, probably after I finish my sorcery-based marathon, which I actually am live right now on Twitch. I'm gonna kick your tiny asses. Oh, you want some? Rumble, Terry.
Beat Dark Souls 2. Best X weapon? Gaming, I'm Nathan, and today we're gonna break Dark Souls 2. Well, yeah, it's been a while since I've done one of these opening 1 hour videos, and today we're gonna continue the series by diving into Dark Souls 2, the black sheep of the trilogy. Now, I personally have a huge soft spot for Dark Souls 2. It's the first Dark Souls game I actually beat, and despite its problems, I find myself replaying it fairly often. I think it's a fantastic game. So if you're new to Dark Souls or the Dark Souls franchise, today I am going to walk you through how to have pretty much the most baller possible start in Dark Souls 2. And lastly, I should mention I will be referencing the Scholar of the First Sin edition throughout this video. If you happen to be playing vanilla for whatever reason, nothing should be hugely different, but I just thought I'd point that out. So enough yakking and let's get to it. Here's how you can beat OP in an hour in Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin. Alrighty, so one of Dark Souls 2's strongest strengths is it has a ton of build diversity when compared to other Souls games. A lot of people have even called Elden Ring Dark Souls 2-2 because of this. However, amongst all the builds, there's one I feel is busted when it comes to beginners, and that is a Rapier build. The Rapier in Dark Souls 2 is obscenely strong, maybe one of the strongest melee weapons in the Souls series, and this is for a variety of reasons, which I will go over now. The main one is that it has great range and attack power, making it almost as safe as a spear, but without any downside. Additionally, when you are one-handing it, it's R2 as a parry, while two-handed you can get a more powerful stab. It also has a fantastic counter-attack stat, which I'll get into what that means later, and it does a surprisingly high amount of poise damage, meaning you can often stun lock most small to mid-sized enemies with little issue. And lastly, since we aren't going to be augmenting it, you can put grease on it to add elemental damage against certain bosses. The secret best thing, however, is there are rings in the game you can get from very early on that amplify this Rapier into the stratosphere. So for this build, we're going to go Rapier and Shield with a bow on the side, and honestly, you need nothing else to carry you through the entire game fairly easily. So as you start off, the starting class doesn't really matter all that much. I should end up picking Bandit, but really you just need a melee-focused one that has decent dex, as you will need 5 strength and 12 dex for the Rapier. Additionally, the Rapier is a dex weapon, so that's going to be our focus. Once you get past the tutorial and enter Majula, it's time for Warcry. In the main town on the far end is an NPC called Moglin, the Armorer, who runs a shop selling various armors. We're going to find whether in the game you can get from very early on that amplify this Rapier into the stratosphere. So for this build, we're going to go Rapier and Shield with a bow on the side, and honestly, you need nothing else to carry you through the entire game fairly easily. So as you start off, the starting class doesn't really matter all that much. I should end up picking Bandit, but really you just need a melee-focused one that has decent dex, as you will need 5 strength and 12 dex for the Rapier. Additionally, the Rapier is a dex weapon, so that's going to be our focus. Once you get past the tutorial and enter Majula, it's time for Warcry. In the main town on the far end is an NPC called Moglin, the Armorer, who runs a shop selling various armors. We're going to find this guy and murder him. Now, before I explain why, and I do have a very good reason, I'm going to do a disclaimer on what this means. First, it does lock you out of event achievements. There's one for having every possible NPC in Majula. If he's dead, it won't count. He does respawn at New Game Plus, so it's still possible to get it then, but honestly, this isn't an achievement most people get on the first run anyway, so I don't really worry about it. And secondly, this guy sells boss items and few various bosses in the game, so killing him will lock you out of that, but we already, if he's dead, it won't count. He does respawn in New Game Plus, so it's still possible to get it then, but honestly, this isn't an achievement most people get on the first run anyway, so I don't really worry about it. And secondly, this guy sells boss items and few various bosses in the game, so killing him will lock you out of that, but we already used any of those items, besides the Rapier and the bow, and just one armor set, so this isn't a big deal anyway. The benefit of killing him, however, is completely insane, as killing him gives it's a Sildora set, in which each piece increases souls gained, and they are additive. Hat gives 2.5%, chest 5%, arms 10%, and legs 5%, leading to a grand total of 22.5% more souls by just equipping this gear. We're going to stack this with a ring early for even more souls, which is going to give you so many levels you are going to crush the entire game. Additionally, it is my opinion, the armor doesn't actually matter that much in Dark Souls 2, aside from fashion, as vitality, aka more hit point, is generally more valuable than armor. I kid you not when I say I take this set to the end game, every game with no issues whatsoever, although I do swap some pieces with the Jester gear down the line. Its benefit of soul gain is basically playing on easy mode, so I highly recommend it. But regardless, once you have that and it's equipped, head to the first area, Forest of Fallen Giants, where we're going to do some farming. So as you progress to the first area, there's 2 things you want to do. First, you're going to learn how to kill that troll near the entrance. He gives 1.2k souls, and knowing how to kill him will be important very soon. Second, you're going to progress to the second bonfire next to the shopkeeper. She sells a key for 1k that'll open the blacksmith door back in Majula, so buy that and let him in. Once he's in, buy a rapier for another 1k souls, and congrats, you now have the weapon you're going to use for the entire rest of the game. As you find your Titanite, always prioritize upgrading the rapier before anything else, as this is our most important weapon. And now we're going to go get a really early ring. Head all the way back to the witch's hut in Things Betwixt, and back across the bridge, then turn right, as there's a secret cave, and at the end is a troll who you're going to need to kill. They aren't super easy this early, however, he won't chase you out of the entry archway, so you can bait him if you wish, and if you happen to get throwing knives while running around the first part of giants, they do high damage to him and can be used to cheese. Killing him drops the stone ring, an item that's extremely good early on against most small and mid-sized enemies. Basically, it increases the poise damage you do to enemies with each hit, increasing the odds that they will flinch and cancel their attack. Paired with fast weapons that already have pretty good poise damage, like the rapier, and you will be stun locking large portions of the game. Okay, now head back to the giant's bonfire, get ready to farm a troll, because we're going to need some souls. For this next part, you're going to need to farm and then spend 10,000 souls on the vendor. And while this may sound daunting or tempting to use them to level, believe me when I say it's absolutely worth doing this as soon as possible. An easy way to get a bunch of souls is by killing that troll at the beginning of the forest for the 1.2k. If he stops by because you drove him to extinction, farm the large group of soldiers by the tree upstairs. Keep in mind, you don't have to spend it all at once, it is cumulative, so feel free to teleport to the vendor and buy stuff intermittently if you get nervous. You'll absolutely want a Pharaoh Stone, and I'd suggest exhausting your life stones, then buying your effigy so you can continue your more regularly. Once you spend 10,000 souls, you either need to pick talk or open a new dialogue with her, and she'll basically say thanks a lot and give you our next broken ring, the Silver Serpent Ring +1. This ring gives 20% more souls and it stacks with your Tessalora set, which means you are now getting 42.5% more souls at the start of the game. I cannot undersell how quickly this adds up. It will make you an absolute god, especially if you kill bosses with this. Equip it and never take it off. What this also triggers is once you beat the first boss, the last giant, the old lady will teleport from here to Petula, and then she will have infinite life gems in her inventory. Now that we are farming souls better than the Legacy of Cain, you will always have cash to buy more life gems, which means basically infinite healing. So yeah, congrats, you now have the strongest possible start ever. And people say money can't buy happiness. Alright, let's go get some more stuff. From here, you're going to continue into the castle until you hit the room full of the ballistas. After beating the soldiers out and killing them, be sure to head in and downstairs. There are two things in here we're going to want to get. The first is you'll see a mouth on the wall where you can stick that barrel stone you found, which will reveal a breakable wall and two chests. Inside one of them, you'll find Chlorothy Ring. This straight up increases stamina regeneration by 12.5%, which is as great as it sounds, so toss that bad boy on. Also in here, you'll find a Titanite chunk, but you can also get a large shard to upgrade your rapier in here as well. There's a door at the far side of the room that you can't open, but if you attack it a few times and run away, the soldiers on the other side will open the door to see what's going on. Especially if you, by killing that troll at the beginning. The Stone Ring and Iron that's extremely good early on against most small and mid-sized enemies. Basically, it increases the poise damage you do to enemies with each hit, increasing the odds that they will flinch and cancel their attack. Paired with fast weapons that already have pretty good poise damage, like the rapier, and you will be stun-locking large portions of the game. Okay, now head back to the Giant's Bonfire and get ready to farm a troll, because we're going to need some souls. For this next part, you're going to need to farm and then spend 10,000 souls at the Old Woman Vendor. And while this may sound daunting, or tempting to use them to level, believe me when I say it's absolutely worth doing this as soon as possible. An easy way to get a bunch of souls is by killing that troll at the beginning of the forest for the 1.2k. If he stops by because you drove him to extinction, farm the large group of soldiers by the tree upstairs. Keep in mind, you don't have to spend it all at once, it is cumulative, so feel free to teleport to the vendor and buy stuff intermittently if you get nervous. You'll absolutely want a Pharaoh Stone, and I'd suggest exhausting your life stones, then buying her effigy so you can do her more regularly. Once you spend 10,000 souls, you either need to pick talk or open a new dialogue with her, and she'll basically say thanks a lot and give you our next broken ring, the Silver Serpent Ring +1. This ring gives 20% more souls and it stacks with your Tessalora set, which means you are now getting 42.5% more souls at the start of the game. I cannot undersell to Petula, and then she will have infinite life gems in her inventory. Now that we are farming quickly, this adds up. It will make you an absolute god, especially if you kill bosses with this. Equip it and never take it off. What this also triggers is once you beat the first boss, the last giant, the old lady will teleport from here to Petula, and then she will have infinite life gems in her inventory. Now that we are farming souls better than the Legacy of Cain, you will always have cash to buy more life gems, which means basically infinite healing. So yeah, congrats, you now have the strongest possible mouth on the wall where you can stick that barrel stone you found, which will reveal a breakable wall and two chests. Inside one of them, you'll find Chlorothy Ring. This straight up increases stamina regeneration by 12.5%, which is as great as it sounds, so toss that bad boy on. Also in here, you'll find a Titanite chunk, but you can also get a large shard to upgrade your rapier in here as well. There's a door at the far side of the room that you can't open, but if you attack it a few times and run away, the soldiers on the other side will open the door to see what's going on. Kill them, and in this room, you will find a chest with that Titanite shard. As mentioned, keep bumping up the rapier as fast as you can. So you're pretty well equipped for now, so let's progress through the game to get our next OP stuff. First, you're going to need to kill the first boss, the last giant, who's already a joke and will be even more a joke now that you are super strong. After doing so, you can open a door in the back of the castle that leads to the top of the ramparts and the next boss that holds an item you want, the Pursuer. Now, normally the Pursuer is infamous for being the first skill check of the game. He's a fast-moving and tough foe to fight. There are tricks to killing him, predominantly around your parrying. If you really just want to establish dominance and murder him, no issues, just do as follows. Upon entering the area, head to the left towards the ballista. You shouldn't need to run, and you want to get the Pursuer to be farish from the ballista, but still in line with it. Once you get to that ballista, mash use, and you'll shoot the Pursuer with the ballista bolt, stunning him and doing a truckload of damage. And hey, it worked once, let's do it again. Reload the ballista and fire again, and it should kill him instantly. Congrats, you passed the skill check with 0 skill. Now, if you failed the ballista stuff or stuff is not quite lining up, you can fight him traditionally. As I mentioned, he's very weak to parries, but the ballista trick will work if you give it enough practice. Regardless, the Pursuer drops the Ring of Blades, an absurd ring with a rapier. It adds a flat 20 damage to every weapon attack, meaning it's not great on slow weapons and is completely busted on fast ones like a rapier. Equip this and never take it off. Alright, so if I'm being honest, from here you're pretty much set, but there is one more ring you can consider, and it is in the next area. If you get over the Heights Tower of Flame and fight your way to the left side of the stage, you will eventually fight through a dragon, and there will be an optional boss, the Old Dragon Slayer, aka Ornstein. It shouldn't be too hard if you've done any level grinding and upgrade your rapier, so kill him and steal his ring, the Old Leo Ring. Now, the Old Leo Ring boosts thrust weapon counter damage by 12.5%, which I don't need to explain what that means. Dark Souls 2 has a unique mechanic where if you attack an enemy while they are in an attack animation, this counts as a counter attack and do a ton more damage. As you can imagine, imagine when fighting bosses that have been wind-ups and wind-downs, the window for when the game considers in an attack can be huge, meaning you can do tons of bonus damage. Not only that, the Rapier has an absurd counterattack stat, 140, one of the best in the game, so adding this ring is just more absurd. The downside, of course, is now we have 5 rings and only 4 fingers. I personally axed the stone ring, though I did swap it in and out depending on the situation. I basically never took the Ring of Blades and Silver Serpent ring off personally, but how you mix and match is up to you. Okay, so you're a billion souls now. What do you want to level up? Well, Dark Souls 2 is somewhat even more obtuse than Dark Souls 1, especially around agility and ADP, so I'm going to actually explain that really fast. Adaptability, or ADP, is a new stat that's only in Dark Souls 2 because it's bad. Or rather, the stat it's paired with is bad, agility. Allow me to explain. In the previous Souls games, your total gear weight determined the type of roll you did, as well as its iframes. If you're too heavy, you fat roll, and you have less iframes. Super light, you have a fast roll, etc. In Dark Souls 2, your roll animation does not change. Weight instead determines your stamina use and regen, which is actually also why the Tesildura set is really great. It's light, so your stamina regen is high. However, your iframes on this never-changing roll do themselves change based on your agility. 2, your roll animation does not change. Weight instead determines your stamina use and regen, which is actually as well as its iframes. If you're too heavy, you fat, it's bad. Or rather, the stat is paired with is bad agility. Allow me to explain. In the previous Souls games,
So, You're fucking man.
All people come here for the same reason. To break the curse. You're no different, I should think. Doesn't stand a chance. Well, you never know. Go through the door and trot along to the kingdom. But remember, hold on to your souls. They're all that keep you from going home. Oh, I'll fool you no longer. You lose your souls. All of them. Over and over again.
Okay. Of course. Of course.
Shoot Dark Souls 2.
Of fucking course.
Amateur weapon, really bad. So that's it for what?
You must go on a journey. Well, I suppose, if you find yourself at an impasse. But if your will is yet unbroken, to start again.
This is a limbo. A link between Drangleic and the outer world. Fair traveller, I know why else would you visit this lost.
Oh. It's fucking blinding, I see. Nice touch. Where's my torch? I want my goddamn torch. You want your what? My goddamn fucking torch. Bitch, I got a torch. Torch is my oh. Which weapon are you getting first? This is gonna be right here.
Comes to beginners, and that is a rapier build. The rapier in Dark Souls 2 is obscenely strong. Maybe one of the scholar of the first sin. Alright, so one of Dark Knight build is busted when it comes to beginners, and that is a rapier build. The rapier in Dark Souls 2 is obscenely strong. Maybe one of the strongest melee weapons in the Souls series, and this is for a variety of reasons which we talk about now. The main one is that it has great range and attack power, making it almost as safe as a spear, but without any downside. Additionally, when you are one-handing it, its R2 is a parry, while two-handed you can get a more powerful stab. It also has a fantastic counter-attack stat, which I'll get into what that means later, and it does a surprising high amount of poise damage, meaning you can often stun lock most small to mid-sized enemies with little issue. And lastly, since we aren't going to be augmenting it, you can put grease on it to add elemental damage against certain bosses. The secret best thing, however, is there are rings in the game you can get from very early on that amplify this rapier into the stratosphere. So for this build, we're going to go rapier and shield with a bow on the side, and honestly, you need nothing else to carry you through the entire game fairly easily. So as you start off, the starting class doesn't really matter all that. It'll be our focus. Once you get past the tutorial and enter Majula, it's time for war crime. In the main town on the far end is an NPC called Moglin, the armorer, who runs a shop selling various armors. We are going to find this guy and murder him. Now, before I
Kill you. It's like that's a word you're not gonna forget. So, one day. Mmm.
Just, I packed my tools in here, but now somebody's gone and locked the door.
You're undead, aren't you? You have that distinct scent. This is much... It is a kind of settlement. A place where life is almost normal. And in Drang Lake these days, there are very...
Undead, are we? And one without much time remaining. Just about ready to fall apart. Not exactly the time to be chatting with a well, oh yes. You may call me Shalqua. Enchant. So, what... Ooh, you smell... Nothing suited you, I presume? Well, that's dismay.
Hello. Welcome to my shop. I'm Morlin. And, sorry, Please do have a look at my... I could really use the business. Well, I do. Curses upon you, enough of this! You won't get me!
Kill him and just break all his shit. that suffix? Oh, it's okay. See how fast it goes. That's good enough. It's not. Definitely. This is very good.